Thank you, as always, for listening to Caleb vs. Self. On this episode, we've got Cyril from the Church of You YouTube channel, a satirical take on religion and hilarious short-form videos on YouTube. We talk about his inspiration that he draws from when he's working on his scripts and how he works to keep himself grounded, especially with some of the topics that he addresses in his videos. You can find him on YouTube at the Church of You and on Twitter at Pastor Cy and God. He also has a Patreon. If you're a really big fan of his work, go ahead and check that out as well. Some of you guys may be familiar with him as he's been on the podcast before, but nevertheless, a new topic, and hopefully you guys enjoy. So, as always, appreciate your time, Cyril. Second time on. This time we're talking about something completely different, and that is your YouTube channel, The Church of You. Just to give a quick little background, at least from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a play or a comedic perspective on super aggressive organized religion.
Yes. Extremist. Correct.
So with that, where did you sit here and come up with Pastor Cy? Like, where does that come from for you?
Dude, the only way I can answer that is a part of it is who I am. And nobody's going to know what that means unless you know who I am. But a part of it is just who I am. I think, I've done a lot of things in my life that more slanted towards the serious because I'm opinionated, right? And I have views and whatever. And a lot of things have been slanted towards the serious. But, growing up as a kid, like there were so many times where I just was always super goofy. And I think to my core, it's not, all of us are different. To my core, it's just not in my nature to be serious. Something about it feels a little off, feels preachy. I don't like stuff like that. So I think Pastor Cy came from this area of frustration with not being able to be a kind of serious commentator. Cause I'll bear it all. I don't care. I would have liked to be one, but it didn't work. It is what it is. So I think a lot of frustration boiled up into, I want to somehow say some of the things I'm thinking, not all of them, some of the things, but I don't think it's in my best interest to try to do that seriously. So I remember one day this summer, I just came across an article about how some woman pastor was getting flamed by super right Christians who don't think women should be pastors. And it just clicked in my mind. It was like, well, I think anybody should be a pastor. That's ridiculous. And I think that I can really take something that might be funny and make it. And I think it just went from there.
So do you feel like, because you did for a little while try to do some pretty serious commentary, and I thought it was pretty good, but in the world that we have today, unless there's something that makes you extremely different from any other, commentator, it's really hard to attain success. And I'm using air quotes there because, it's
difficult.
It's relative too, right? Success is relative. But do you feel
true.
like doing this style of comedic commentary gives you two things? Number one, an outlet to be able to get all that kind of opinion off your chest in a fun way. And number two, as far as culpability, at the end of the day, you can be like, oh, it's just a sketch. So if somebody did find it with somebody that you worked with and they're like, hey, that's insulting. Is that
no, that's a really
does
good
that
question.
give you that advantage?
I think I don't, because I feel like knowing that some of this commentary is informed by my opinions, I feel like it's a cop-out to say, oh, it's not serious. I actually don't think I would ever answer that way. I don't. I would say this. I am not here. If you have a reasonable, good relationship with whatever God you have, and you generally keep yourself and you're good to others, you're not who I'm making fun of at all. I don't, and I talk to my girlfriend about this all the time because she's starting to see more and more, which is terrifying, but I tell her all the time because she's spiritual. I don't know how religious she is, but she's spiritual, and I tell her all the time. I'm like, and she's got a lot of friends that are very religious, and that's fine. I tell her all the time, this isn't about making fun of religion. There's so many decent religious people out there. There really is. But if you go look at what I'm doing, it's making fun of the extremists. Now, I will say that it's offensive because I'm doing a caricature of religion, and I'm sure that a lot of reasonable religious people will take that as offense. But to me, just move on. Don't watch it. Just don't watch it. Can't live in this world where, everything's got to offend you. Just don't watch it. I don't mean to offend you, but just don't watch it. I don't remember the first part of that question if you still want an answer, but that one resonated more with me. Because
No,
I just
that's
don't. Yeah.
it was just, does it give you an out, if you
Oh,
will, if somebody finds it offensive? And you answered the question, so
the first one was, is it helpful to get your opinion off your chest? Absolutely. The way we started
oh
out this
yeah.
conversation was I want to have a voice. I do. I just think that every single one of us is our own individual. And I think that, and we see this, and some people have been mildly successful with this, but we see this a lot. I think there's a lot of people who they crave success so bad, they force themselves into something that necessarily like is like not, you got to work with who you are. I'm a non-serious person, just what it is.
Right.
So, yeah.
Does any of your mannerisms or any of the things that you refer to or talk about outside of your direct opinion, is there any influence from our growing up, like how we were raised as pretty devout Baptists?
I'm sure there is, but it's got to be subconscious. There's nothing consciously that like we didn't grow up with some extreme right wing crazy pastor, like, so I don't, or any wing, who cares, like some extremist whatever. So I'm sure there is. I again, this kind of just came naturally, like it just did. I've had a bunch of people tell me when they see this, people that I know, that say like, wow, you own that character, and I think that matters. That matters to, like, not being successful, but that matters to being the best way to get whatever you want off your chest out there. Yeah, I just think serious doesn't vibe
It's
with me. And I think too,
funny.
like,
Yeah, go ahead.
real
Go
quick,
ahead.
if I can say, a lot of the opinions I have, and I admit this, I'm not saying people say this and I don't agree with this. A lot of the opinions I have, if you come at it from a serious angle, so tricky because it's a lot of collective mindset. And I've always felt a little bit of a way, even when I was doing those serious videos. I've always felt a little bit, it's not the same, but I felt a little bit like a preacher, like I was preaching to people. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
I think one
I
of the
wasn't a fan.
holdovers that I see right from the get go is you wearing a button up and a tie, because that was very
Yeah.
like our church when we were growing up. Like, you always put on Sunday best, whereas churches today, not collectively, but a lot of them are a lot more casual now.
True. I think if you're going to do a caricature, I want to hear what you think. My mind is, if you're going to do a caricature, you should go, like, a caricature doesn't work with being just a cash 2020. Like, I'm caricaturing, like I said, many religious people are normal and great. I'm caricaturing the crazy people. And I think the farther back you go in time, the more proper people were. There was more and more crazy people, right? As we move towards the future, it dispels itself a little bit. And I think that part of the caricature is to dress like that. If I dress down, I don't think it works with what I'm trying to do. I don't.
That's fair.
But
Yeah, I think that's right. But I mean, when I
yeah,
see you do that, you're one step away from Joel Osteen. Like, you just need a suit
100%.
jacket, doc,
Dude, I got jackets.
or Jim Baker. You know what I mean? I need you to
Yeah.
be. I need you to be eating out of a trough, creamed corn or some shit.
You seen those are great. Super Deluxe kills me.
Shout out
But
to
yeah, I think you're right. I think when you want to make a caricature of what I'm doing, you don't dress down, because a lot of times these people who might have a church where they're dressing down and they're more accepting, that's not what I'm making fun of. So, if you're dressing down, you're going to a church where everybody's chilling and not bothering people, then do you. Like, I think more and more there's, like you said, the Jim Bakers and the crazies who dress up like that. There's also some who don't, but yeah, I think
like
that's
Justin Bieber's pastor or something like that.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and I've shown you guys that picture. Is that what you're referencing? That,
Yeah,
like, Dick
yeah.
Root, that Dick Root picture. So I was showing you that picture, but I'm sure, on the one hand, do I think that person is using people and trying to just get famous? Yes, of course. But on the other hand, is that pastor as bad as a Jim Baker? Probably not. Probably. Like, they're different flavors, and, like, are they using people? Sure. But there's a way to, I think, for a modern pastor to do things that's more accepting. And even if your whole goal isn't God, it's ambition, that's on some level still better than Jim Baker. So I can grow the Dick Root, though. You let me know.
Well, I like in your video a couple of days ago, God cannot hear prayers through masks, about Jim Baker. That
one's blowing up a little bit.
That picture of him being arrested, my God.
I got to do a better job with that, finding unflattering photos of, like, yeah. Interestingly enough,
I might clip this part right here and just hashtag Jim Baker this shit and put it on Instagram and use that picture that you found.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, some of my best videos haven't necessarily been things that like might be trending or whatnot, but it's when I make fun of those guys, which is weird. The Jim Baker videos pop off every time. I think there's like 3 of them. And I'm like, wow, like, okay. I don't know.
I mean, listen, Jim Baker's got an army out there. They might be 75 years old and broke, but he got an army out there.
I agree with you that most of the people who are still clicking to this day, hopefully that changes in the future, are people who are maybe expecting an affirmation of Jim Baker's views. That is not what you should be here for.
Well, so let's talk about that strategy, because that also we've talked about a little bit before. When you're doing what you're doing and how you're doing it, you're obviously like your first if the algorithm ever picks up a video, it's going to people who don't and will not agree with you whatsoever. Correct. Have 100%. You seen, like, I've seen a couple of comments, but which one is like, oh, this guy's not about this?
Oh man, I wish I could. I gotta be honest with you. And I'm sure anybody would feel this way. If you're a creator and you get positive comments, you're gonna remember those more than like whoever gives it, like, you know.
But in this case, it's got to be a little bit different, because you're intentionally like kind of sticking a finger in the eye of the people who are way out there. Like you said, you're not talking to the people who go to church because they like the community and they have a spiritual affirmation. You're talking to the people who are way gone. Right.
Yeah. TFG. TFG, too far gone. Yeah.
Yeah. So those people have got to be the first ones. And you have to, I mean, you're going to get a lot of hate in the next month or two, probably.
Oh, I love it. I welcome it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, hell yeah. No doubt. I think probably the one that sticks out the most to me, I remember this now, is someone called me a flamer. And I remember, I can't remember what it was. It was like, I think it was the Jesse Lee Peterson video. He's like, because he was like, women shouldn't be educated. And I was like, you're an idiot. And then someone said, like, in quotes, educated, you have a false premise already. I think as if to say, like, however I was describing the education wasn't necessarily how Jesse Lee Peterson was, but whatever, he's a fucking crazy idiot. But yeah, then he called me a flamer, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, there's a lot of videos I do because these people just fucking hate gays so much that shit pops off. So there's a lot of videos I do that like either affirm God loves gays or like whatever is accepting of gays. So I do have a healthy feeling that by the new year, if I have a few subscribers, the haters, or not subscribers, but the haters that might have seen it might think I'm fucking gay. Like, whatever, dude, I don't give a shit.
Well, I think the one that I remember is the Omar from that video. And I just pulled it up, and it's, if you're so right and so brave, why don't you go on JP's show and tell him he's so wrong?
Dude, I would totally do that, because exposure is fucking exposure for me, man.
If you could get it, would you do it?
Oh, 100%. I'd be there yesterday. And I thought about this too, and I shouldn't, but like whenever you're creating, you always think of what the future could be. I thought about, if someone actually wants to interview Pastor Cy, what does that look like? I'm going to have to go in character. Like if I went to Jesse Lee Peterson, would I do it in character? I would. But like, what would that be? Like, how would I answer the questions? I think there's a way. I just really haven't fleshed it out yet.
The first thing I imagine in my head is Pastor Cy going, yes, you're such a dumbass.
Yes. Yeah. So the general like stupid fuck would be there for sure. But
that's how you would start, because I feel like for you, when you do that, yes, and I know you write a little bit of a script, but there's definitely some ad-libbing in there too.
Of course there is, yeah.
And I feel like for you, that character, when you do that yes thing, is your brain giving yourself that 2 seconds to be like, got it, this is what I'm doing.
Yes, it totally, absolutely, 100%, yeah. And it's either the yes, most of the time it's yes, or it's like the praise God, you know what I'm saying? And I like, yeah, you're right, because they're... So it's interesting that you asked this, and I know I would love to do this because the questions you ask. But when I write a script, the lines that are there are just generalized. Talk about this. Think about this. So yeah, when I go through it, there's a lot of like in the moment, and I'm sure a lot of people who maybe not, but I'm sure there's a few people who act or do comedy in that way who play a role would say, once you're in that role, like you can't replicate what I'm going to say until I take that deep breath and I start. And you're right. I take those few seconds from time to time to say, oh, this, okay, I got to add this in. Like I got to do this or that. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because
So,
like in a lot of the interviews that I've done in this practice, I'll write down a few questions, maybe 10, 20 questions.
yeah,
I never get to all of them because
I
just
believe
like with
that.
you, I've got a framework, but wherever
Yeah.
that conversation goes or whatever pops up into my head, it kind of steers into that direction. Where do you
Yeah.
think that comes from for you? Like that, being able to ad lib like that, where does that come from?
Oh, what a great question. I have to refer back to what I said in the beginning. There's something about me that is just dumb or wants to not be serious.
Okay.
I don't know, dude. It's such a great question because like when I'm writing, they never come to me. They never
Nope.
come to me. There's something about being in the moment. Yeah, and I'm sure when you're interviewing people, you write down 20 questions and then you come up with 40 more in your mind as they're saying things because you're thinking and you're like, oh shit, like right. So yeah, I don't actually know where it comes from. I don't know, but that makes me feel good because it's just instinct. It's just instinct. Like how many people could turn on a camera and be that stupid? Enough, but like not everybody. So yeah, I don't know. It's just
But I've seen you do it not in a comedic way as well. Like just having conversations with people. Like you're going to have a conversation with this person. Maybe it's a relative of ours, maybe a friend of ours, and you're
and it
trying to get to a
evolves.
certain goal, right?
Sure.
I mean, I last summer, our grandmother, God rest her soul, she passed away. We ran into
Sweet
some
woman.
weird situations.
Very Catholic, wonderful. Go ahead.
Yeah, beautiful woman, lady in the purple hat. The point is, though, is that even in those situations, like I've seen you be able to weave in and out regardless of the situation. And I'm curious as to like, there's got to be something that comes from. Do you think that comes from being coda, being children of a deaf adult?
I'm sure that has something to do with it. Absolutely, especially with the mannerisms. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Being informed on growing up and I've heard worse stories in my adult life, so I'm not going to say we were extreme religion. We weren't. But growing up in a very devout Christian environment, going to church sometimes 3 times a week, all of that shapes this. I think that's why I feel so comfortable with this character. I think you've got the unserious side of me. You've got the information that you kind of need that I have. And I think that all drives towards a confidence in having the character. And you need to have all these things to be able to play that character off. It's still a work in progress, but from the get of just thinking of something and doing a video 5 minutes later, like I like I like that. Like it's still unpolished, but yeah, I think you've got to have all these things that because otherwise it just comes off as unsincere, ungenuine. And we've all seen people
It's
online,
inauthentic.
whatever they're commenting on. Thank you. Whatever they're commenting on, when it's unauthentic, it's just like, oh, that sounds like weird,
Do you think, because I remember not too long ago, I took the girls and Alex and we went camping at Green Lakes. And at Green Lakes, we as kids acted like deaf kids.
Yes.
And I wonder if doing that game also factors into the ability to ad lib and improvise, right?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. And I think, again, the core of me is to be an unserious person and have fun with things. And then when you add in all of that practice, yeah, I think it almost comes naturally. I remember such a nervousness about making serious videos. I remember, and this is why I know it's not right for me. It's okay. I remember writing scripts for serious videos for days and just overthinking and just tweaking for no reason. This comes so naturally. Like this morning, I woke up. I like scrolled on my phone once I woke up and I saw that some like, what was it this morning? I saw some like high school had a walkout because like fucking some gay coach got fired because he's gay. And it's like this with me. It's like, oh, that is fantastic. I wrote the script in 10 minutes. Well, and I ad-libbed about 50% of it. Like
that leads me to my next thing is in today's crazy ass world, how hard is it for you to find material to start with?
Oh, it's so easy.
Because I know for me, I'll see it and I'll text it to you. Be like, oh, this Cyril should take a look at this.
And I've used a couple of them. I appreciate that. I've used a couple of them. A couple of ones you texted me. I used a couple that you sent me that I hadn't seen. You've sent me also more that I already had seen. And I had
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah. The prayers behind the mask one. I already had the whole script written. And you're like, dude, look at this shit. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But yeah, it's really easy, and I think there's a part of me that was extremely upset, not upset, but there's a part of me that was frustrated with the way the world works right now, in so far as you've got a whole bunch of people who take a god religion seriously, okay, and they're allowed to just run with it, and nobody can stop them, nobody can say anything, because what's your fallback? You said earlier, what's your fallback? Oh, I'm not serious. The fallback for this is like, oh, you don't know, I talk to God, you don't, right? And that's what all these pastors can do, and that frustrated me so much. It's like, you can just say all this dumb shit, and then you're just like, well, actually, this is what God says. You can hide behind that stupid wall of this, I don't want to say fake, I'm not going to say that, but of this like veneer of like, oh no, that's not me, that's what God says. So I kind of wanted to flip that and be like, you know what, let's give a modern spin on, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's the morality and the ethics that I have, and I'll say that's God, and then I'll just be like, hey, that's what God said. Well, you know, I've always been so frustrated with that hide behind the, oh, God said it, like, because isn't it funny these days that like medical misinformation gets wiped off the internet, but you can say that, I did a video this evening, you can say that God lives in Jello, and like nobody's gonna, it's like
Nobody bats an eye to it.
Nobody bats an eye. It's like, and I get it. Medical misinformation hurts people physically. You know, you say God sits in Jello in heaven and I went there. Like, that doesn't really hurt anybody physically, but it's always been frustrating to me. It's like, you know what? I bet you there's a way that I can put a spin on this and then be like, nope, that's what God said. So I've thought about how I could, this is the biggest thing I've thought about, taking this to the next level eventually. Thought about how I could actually talk to actual religious people who would be willing to talk to the caricature, which is probably tricky to find, but I've thought about that. So
you may have to get somebody who's willing to act. Unfortunately, I don't know if you're going to be able to get.
Well, and you could be right, but what I was thinking was a lot of these people who are super extremist, and this is my opinion, I guess I have to say, a lot of them, they're the ones that are extremely attention hungry, power hungry, success hungry. Like, when you get these middle of the road religious people, they're good people. They're not power hungry. They're not. So I might actually be able to, and I see this play out in other ways, in like the political realm, the whatever realm. You might actually get these people who are super crazy to talk to you because they don't actually care or think it through. Like, they'll just sit down with you and talk to you. I could be wrong. I don't think that's everybody, but I do think there's enough people who are attention whores who might be like, oh, I'll sit down with you anyways. Like,
could be
right, cool. Like,
could be. I envision, if it were me, and it's not me, obviously, so you can leave this in the dumpster where it probably belongs, but I envision you visiting people picketing at Planned Parenthood dressed up as Pastor Cy.
Exactly.
And me or Chad following you with a camera.
Exactly right. I don't know that, and I got to be honest with you. Everybody is who they are, and you've got to stay in your lane if you want to feel genuine. I don't know that a Planned Parenthood rally would feel genuine because, like, I even have confused thoughts about abortion. I admit it. I do.
That's fair.
So I don't think that's my best realm, but it would be like if there was even just like, oh, there's a church revival like here in the park, even just that, like, guys, there's plenty of things I could think of to challenge people on, because they would, and I think some of them would bite, because if you walk up to someone and say, I don't believe in God, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong, I'm right, then nobody's going to talk to you. If I say to someone, I believe in God, but it ain't what you think, oh, now we got something. Or not that I believe in God, but like, I talk to God. And then you could tell them, like, God thinks homosexuals are great. And they're going to be like, wow, like, that can't be true. You know?
I feel like you could do so many things with this character. I'll be honest with you, I'm slightly envious because you've got, I mean, not only is it funny, but the versatility that you have, like, you could even play like a joke where like you convince another church in like Pennsylvania that you're a visiting pastor.
That would be fucking amazing, dude.
Or so, you know what I mean? Like, write like a 10-minute sermon where you just go ham sandwich.
Especially like a church that skews older and they're not going to research you. They're just like, oh, it's pastor.
Right.
It just fucks me in.
And at the end be like, you can visit my Patreon, $3 a month for support.
Oh, I knew you would zero in on that. I love that. But yeah, it's true. So I think you're absolutely right. But there's one other thing that you need to marry with that to make it work. To make it work, you have to, and this is what I do with Church of You right now. Hopefully it'll get better and more polished, but right now what I do is it's got to be related to God or religion somehow. I'm not going to do politics, this.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be God or religion. And you start the video by framing something everybody agrees with. You say, God loves everyone. It doesn't matter who they are. They're like, oh, God loves everyone. That's true. That's true. And then you roll into, and he accepts homosexuals and you can be who you are. Then people are like, oh shit. Like, so I do think that just like with religion where they frame their morals, you do have to frame some sort of morals or ethics you're coming from. Because otherwise you're just bullshitting. Like for me at least.
Yeah.
So if I can frame it in a way that's like, God loves us all. Oh, he does. Yeah, he definitely does. Okay, he also loves homosexuals. You don't got to change. People be like, wait a minute. But then hopefully 1 out of every 100 people kind of are like, oh, does he have a point here? Who knows? So
I just enjoy that you're having so much fun with it. I haven't seen you have this much fun creating content. I mean, you, me, and our other brother, Chad, we've done our little Three Bros podcast a long, long time ago. You've done your serious, a little more political commentary thing, but it always felt unnatural. It
did. I agree.
Stressed. You know what I mean? Like we're trying too hard to make something. Whereas with this, it feels like, and seems like, and I feel like it comes off on the videos so natural. Like this is fun.
Yeah.
I'm getting it off my chest.
And you can watch me talk and you say, this man is joking here, but this man also espouses some things that like, he believes this. Like he's being genuine about this.
One of the things I've noticed is there is a tiny tone change when you go from Pastor Cy to here's injecting a little bit of Cyril. This is actually what I believe.
You think is that bad? Because I would take that
not
out.
At all.
Like
not at all.
Okay.
I think
it doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. But I think when it does happen, it happens so naturally that it feels right.
And again, it usually happens. I don't want to say it always does, but it usually happens in a sense of where like, how does anybody believe it usually happens in that area of like everybody can agree on this in that frame area. It doesn't come in the beginning though. The beginning is the frame.
Correct.
And then like this evening's video was about this pastor visited heaven and like saw God in jello or gelatin. So I remember in the middle of the video, I was like, these people believe in an omnipotent God. They believe in this all-powerful God, and he lives in jello? You know what I'm saying? It's like who believes that? That's insane. I think too, I think there's a lot of people who are typical, normal, everyday folk who are good people, who are religious. And the people I make fun of, it truly isn't a lot of people. A lot of people don't believe this stuff. They don't. You got a country of 330 million people. You got a world full of how many? There's only so many. But to your point earlier, there's a lot of it. So it's easy to make fun of.
Do you think that the next step in the creation of these videos is you tweeting them directly to or somehow trying to get them to the people you're almost talking about?
So you made me think of that the other day with the Taliban one.
Well, Alex my wife yelled at me about that. She was like, why would you tell Cyril to tweet him
that's
crapping
fantastic.
on the Taliban to
Wait,
the Taliban?
What? Why not? Oh, no, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I didn't know the Taliban were on Twitter. I'm sure they'll get kicked off soon enough. But I did find
the wild west of social media, bro. I don't know if they're going to get kicked off.
What does get you kicked off of Twitter? Anyways, that's beside the point. Yes, I do think. Look, I mean, I've always told you, and I was serious about this. I always told you, like, you can't get ambitious about a product that's not there. I think I'm already at the point where I have so much product that I could start thinking about how to like collaborate. One, right? Try to find someone to do that with, and two, maybe start tweeting at people and things. For sure, I agree. But I just never liked that idea. If you make your first video and then all of a sudden you're like you can't do that. Like you got to have a base. You have a nice base.
Well, like we said at the beginning, well, actually, I don't know if we said this while we were recording, but there's a wonderful evolution that I'm seeing with the channel as you move on. Like first you started without a thumbnail, like you just had your logo as the thumbnail, and it was just like, all right. And then you took an actual still from you doing the bit as a thumbnail. I was like, okay, like that's a little more engaging. Now you're at the point where you're intentionally getting a picture of you in
Correct.
Pastor Sai mode, which is like
Yes.
hilariously aggressive, like
Correct.
not serious, but also trying to be
No.
serious at the same time. And that's your screen grab. And you've done stuff like you've gone from just talking to the camera to now incorporating a little newscaster side image of whatever it is you're talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
you're seeing that evolution occur. And to your point, you
100%.
can't get aggressive until you feel a lot more natural and you're in a groove and
Yeah.
you're starting to hit that groove.
Yeah, and most people don't like to hear this. And I didn't like to hear this at one point. You probably didn't either. Everybody doesn't like to hear this. It takes time. It takes time. It just takes time. What you're going to do is not going to be as good as it can be in the beginning. And if you really want to do something, you just have to start doing it. And then you do see that progression. Like I've privated a bunch of videos now. If you go to the page, it's all ones with like I've changed it a lot. Yeah. I do feel good about where I am right now. That happened this week when I polished up some things. I do feel good about it. I do want to stay in the space where like nobody could like this. I want to stay in that space. But yeah, I feel good about how everything looks.
Well, for me, I've had this discussion with other people who are creators. I mean, a quick shout out to Dennis. He'll probably never hear this, but I talk to him pretty often. And his thing is always like, well, are you having fun doing it? Then just stay
Yes,
in
that's
that
the right
realm.
answer.
Stay in that
And
realm.
that realm can keep me doing this past New Year's, even if I'm not sad. Like because what is satisfaction? To me, satisfaction is having fun doing it, and I have way too much fun doing it. So I almost feel like I need to clarify the deadline. The deadline was to get me going, and it's done that. And I think now that I'm finally going, there's a real chance that we get to the new year and I only have like, let's be real ridiculous, like real dumb and low. I only have like 50 subscribers, but I have so much fun doing it. I just gonna keep doing it. I could care less. So we'll see. And they're not hard to do. You mentioned this to me before, where you always want to make sure you don't get complacent, but you do. It helps to be in a groove of like the setup, and like it's quicker and quicker and quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, again, I had this conversation with Dennis. I was like, the best way to do it is to build a framework that is consistent, but allows you to play within that box.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to spend an inordinate amount of time editing or scrubbing or reading some crap that I just don't care about, because then all of a sudden you're just demotivated to do it.
Yeah. You got to keep it in that lane that keeps you motivated and doesn't overwhelm you. 100%.
And what's interesting is that
100%.
like in this moment, I'm calling back to one of my old army buddies, Castoglian. I remember when I first got out and he was like, dude, what are you going to go to college for? Like he was going back to get his MBA, really ambitious, super smart guy.
I hope he did. But
he did. He's successful.
Hell
He's doing great for himself. But I remember I was like, oh, I think I'm going to get my degree in biology so I can do aquaponics. And I remember he called me and he was like, you're such a fucking idiot. Don't do that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why not? Like, I think it's and he's like, listen, at the end of the day, this is the real world. Like, the chance of success for you is next to none. So what you should do is get yourself a stable, real job that you can work 40 hours a week and live comfortably, because after you're done at work, then you can go do whatever garbage you want to do.
Yeah, and I totally agree.
Tied to you eating or paying rent or et cetera, et cetera. And we're lucky enough, we're fortunate enough to be able to do that at this point. And you can see where it's like, oh, like I get it now. I didn't understand when I was 22 years old. Now I get it. Now I see why you would tell me something like that.
Yeah, I feel that. I definitely feel that. I think in life, and this is getting off of Church Review, but in life, you just like in investments, don't put it all in one basket. Like I got a bunch of things going on right now. I work, you know that. I just finished up 2 summer classes while I was creating, and I did very well in them. I could not effing believe it. Like it's never going to happen again. And I did that because I want to work towards an MBA, just in case. Like there's so many different lanes. I'm applying to Fed jobs because of the background I have and the resume I have. So there's so many different things that, and I think that coming back to the Church of You with that mindset, that in a way will help me continue to do this past New Year's, because it's a hobby. And when it stays in the area of a hobby, it can just be fun. It can literally just be fun. So yeah, I think we'll see what happens, but it definitely keeps it in that area, which is good. I think yeah, I mean, you never know where you'll see success. So I just try to put it everywhere and we'll see what happens.
I think at the same time, you also have to be cognizant of what may occur. So if you do
Yeah.
pop off, right? And I'm going to refer back to another person that I actually did a podcast with a few weeks ago, Alex Rudd. And he was like, you
Yep.
know, the podcast is fun. It sounds like you're having fun. Here's what I would tell you. The first person that comes to you offering you something, just remember you can say no. Like, don't tie
Yes. I
yourself
agree
to
with
an
that.
obligation if
Totally agree with that.
somehow you are able to make something work and
Because that
it
could kill your
be.
creativity and your love.
And he
Yeah.
specifically said, he
Yeah.
was like, listen, I've
That's
got
so true.
friends who did that. They took the sponsorships as soon as they came. They took this and that as soon as they came. And now
Yeah.
those sponsors are telling them what they should create, not the other way around. They aren't
Yes.
creating
Oh, I believe
for
that.
them. They're doing it for a sponsor. The sponsor says, hey, we want you to market to 10 to 15-year-olds. Well, I don't want to make a video or make a thing or make content or
Right.
whatever for 10 to 15-year-olds. Like that sucks.
Because a sponsor just wants to make money on their end. They're obviously less concerned with what you're doing. They just know you get attention. And so now they just want to, yeah. I don't think, if I may say, you could correct me. I don't think either one of us will ever not be, I'm not trying to say we're not going to be successful with what we do. I bet you one of us might be, but I don't think either one of us would ever do that. I just, there's too many things that go on in my life that I could be successful at that I don't need. And again, that keeps it in the lane of like hobby and enjoyment. I just don't need to do that.
Well, I think it's a pertinent reminder both ways. You know what I mean? Like, if nothing happens, remember, as long as you're having fun, you know, you don't have to worry about it paying your bills. But on the other hand, if you do find something, just remember to keep it so that you can still do what you like to do.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of human beings that could hate because of selling out, whatever industry it's in. Okay. I don't actually hate, I've never hated anybody for selling out. I could care less. I just think that like if you want to keep it pure and this and that, then you're right. You've got to keep it in that lane. I don't hate on people for selling out. Like, you know, if someone made a bunch of money, but then all of a sudden they're like disappointed, like it is what it is. But
okay, I hate to do this, but I'm going to correct you. You do hate on people that sell out.
I don't. I truly don't.
Ready?
They should hate themselves.
They pack churches pew to pew, my guy. Those people have sold out.
I know. That's not wrong. That's not wrong. I know. This is actually going back to the Church of You. This is actually, there's been a few times where I've stopped and thought to myself, like, how am I doing this? Like, I never thought, I don't know. There's definitely been a few times where I don't know how the hell I pull this off. I don't know how I do this, but I guess it's natural. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun, but
well, that's the most important part.
It's true, but the challenge is how do you keep it there? And I think the important thing is to surround yourself with people that will keep you grounded. I think there's probably a lot of times where people sold out because they didn't. Probably one of two things. They only wanted the success, which if they got it, like good for them. But like that's not the greatest motivator to just want to be rich or want to. Do you know what I'm saying? And two, I think they just didn't have people around them that grounded them enough. You really need to have people that will tamp you down always. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, and you always see, it doesn't matter what industry, you always see the people that just didn't have that tamping. And it's almost like they shoot off like a comet and then just burn out. So
it starts from a good place. So
yeah,
you know, everybody that makes something doesn't at first make it because they're going to be rich and famous.
It does. That's definitely true. Well, yes, for the most part, that's true.
I mean, that's how I like to think of it. I like to think of it as
you're right.
People started doing something because they enjoyed doing it.
Or that's a part of them in some way. Yeah.
And it just took off because of, it could be the circumstance or whatever. Like, even if it's not content creators, like look at Bill Gates. Like, he was a kid who liked to hack and play with computers. wasn't like he was playing with computers thinking that he's going to have a, multi-billion-dollar empire. That's not how that works,
No, not at all. I do think that me and you, what we're trying to do is going to take time. I don't think that what we're trying to do is in any way viral. Both of us.
No,
It's
not at
just
all.
going to take time. It's just going to build an audience as much as you can try to build it. I in the last month of Go ahead.
Situationally, it's a little different, right? Because I'm going to go back to like the whole concept of doing social media and making content. A 3-minute or 2-minute video on YouTube, or if you started putting that on Instagram or on TikTok as well, is gonna be easier to catch than a hour-long podcast. You know what I mean?
I agree with that.
Just situationally.
I do. I agree with that. I think if we're testing the virability of something, sure, mine might be more. But going back to like crashing and burning and all that, if you have high virability, I feel like you have such a high chance of crashing and burning. What you're trying to do, if you can build an audience over time, that's a hard audience. That's not a soft audience. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a hard audience. And
yeah, hear that, audience? You're hard as fuck.
well, that's not. You know what I meant? Fuck you.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I meant they'll stick around. They really enjoy it. They found you through like whatever, as opposed to like someone on TikTok getting viral yesterday because they, ate a booger, and then it's like, okay, like what are you gonna do tomorrow? Like it's not.
Yeah. That's
so I
fair.
hear you,
That's
and
fair.
I do think the shortness of my videos help that. I think I do if I think if I get to enough subscribers, because right now it really is a numbers game. I believe in what I do. I believe that enough people will like it, and by enough people, not that many. Let's relax. But I believe in what I do. I believe enough people will like it. And I think if I get enough people to subscribe and I can, every time I post, really get views just on my own from people who are subscribed, I will move to once or twice a week with longer format. Absolutely.
Do you think so?
I do think so.
Like, do you? So when you talk about it in that way, are you going to stitch like 3 of them together?
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
like
it'd be a bunch of things.
Almost.
Yes. Yeah, it'd be a bunch of, because it would be easier on me. I just think it would be easier on me. It would give me a lot more time.
Do you think you could do that over 10 minutes or 15 minutes instead of 2 or 4?
Didn't you ask me how much content there is? Endless, bro.
At the beginning. No, that's not what I mean. I mean you playing the character. Because you said even before, like, if I got invited to what's his name show, would I be able to beat Pastor Cy for 45 minutes or an hour in an interview?
So let me clarify. I can be Pastor Cy. I just don't know what that looks like. Is more where I'm coming from. I can do that. I just, because look, look, and this comes from my ethics and how I view people, no matter their beliefs. I truly don't want to build something that is just fucking carpetbagging, offending tons of people. Like, no, like I don't want to do that. I don't want to. That's why I don't know what Pastor Cy would look like in character in an interview, because I'm not just going to be some like grenade throwing asshole. Like, no, that's not even who I am. Like we said, we've done serious discussions for years, and that's still a part of me. So I don't know what that would look like, because I don't know how to be Pastor Cy, but also engage in a discussion that would be one-sided serious in a way. Like that's tricky. I think you're right. I think there'd have to be some sort of like other actor on the other side. It would be tricky.
So what else do you think the future or the Church of You could or might become? Is there anything rolling around in your head that you're half thinking about doing 3 months from now, other than walking up to a church function?
Not walking up to a church. I don't think it would ever be like that. I think it would be going back to laying a base work of what you have, and then just reaching out to people. And then could I walk up to something and just do like you know who Jordan Klepper is? That man just goes into Trump rallies, and like, you ever seen him? And he does interviews with Trumpers.
Like right outside of the rallies.
But he does it in a way that's he's almost like all gas no brakes guy, but with like a dash of serious. Like he'll still go in, talk to people, get them to conversate, but he's not like letting them go all gas no brake, right? Like there's a little break.
No, I got you. So with all gas no brake, He'll ask a stupid question, or what seems to be a stupid question, and let that person continue to talk for as long as they want. And that's when you go from the earth is flat to the Jesuits are doing things to take over
Sure.
crazy
Whatever.
shit. This guy, it sounds like he will stop them with a follow-up, probably serious question, semi-challenging that belief.
Exactly. So that's more what I would do. It's more of it's not an actual discussion, but it's like 10% of one, in the sense that, like, when you say things, I will once again come back with the framing of it's too easy to do this one, but again, a lot of times it's gay and trans people. It's like, okay, well, does God love everybody? That kind of a thing. So what he does is, like, if someone says something that they haven't fleshed out in their mind, he asks follow-up questions. And that's all I would do. But you need to do it from the right frame. Like, if you do it from a frame of, like, I'm straight up a non-believer and I fucking hate everything about you, like, that's not gonna go anywhere. So yeah, it'd be from, like, a frame of, like, okay, like, you think, like I said, you think, gays are terrible or trans are terrible or whatever. Then you just say, well, like
doesn't God love
like
everybody?
I saw a clip tonight right before we got on of Jesse Lee Peterson again, because that man is outrageous. And he said, like, or no, it wasn't him. It was some pastor. Because, like, my Twitter feed is now all just, like, searching for stuff, right? So it's all just, like, people posting crazy people. And this one pastor was like, we're not going to solve COVID until this country gets on its knees and solves sodomy. And my follow-up question would be, like, what does that mean, solve sodomy? Does that mean, like, no gay people at all? Like, do you know what I'm saying? And you just kind of go from there. And you try to frame that against, like, not just an ethics that I set that maybe everyone can agree with and they're going to conflict with, but you just try to frame that in a way that they just can't even figure it out. It's like, oh, like, I guess, yeah. I don't know. It's still something I have to flesh out. So,
well, I can't wait to see over the next few months what you do with it, where you go with it, all the stuff that you're going to put up. So if you've gotten to this point in the podcast, please check it out. Church of You on YouTube. You can also follow him on Twitter. And if you really like his stuff, check out his Patreon, give it a look, and maybe we can give him an incentive to do something a little more with it. Appreciate your time as always, Pastor Cy.
Thank you. Always flame me for the Patreon.
Can't wait to talk to you next time.